Welcome, everyone. This is Pierre Rochard. He is a Bitcoin maximalist extraordinaire, host of the Noted podcast, and creator of the Node Launcher. And today he's going to talk about how to configure and launch your Bitcoin and Lightning nodes, which is great.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me on. Let's see. Let's turn on the share here. All right. Briefly, if we just start with how to run a node without any kind of without the node launcher, you've got the Radar Ion guide here, and you quickly realize that you've got to get into the command line. You've got to get into the configuration files, and you've got to put together a bunch of information so that your Bitcoin node can work and communicate with your LND node, your Lightning node. So I was doing this for a little bit, and I realized that I did not enjoy doing it at all. And the other thing, too, is that on Windows, it's even harder because the command line on Windows is just worse than on Mac OS or on Linux. And I was creating an Excel plugin that allowed you to query your Lightning node and get all of the data out of it and interact with your Lightning node. And I enjoyed this plugin a lot. The problem was having to get a node up to communicate with the plugin. So I created a cross-platform UI that essentially spins up your Bitcoin node and then connects your Lightning node to it, all automatically without you having to do anything. So then it goes and lives up here. So that way you don't have to mess with all this configuration command line stuff, and you don't have to make sure the ZMQ port for transactions matches for both LND and Bitcoin, and make sure it's not the same as the ZMQ port for blocks, and all these weird things that the user shouldn't really care about. It should all just be taken care of for them. So the node launcher is kind of a layer. You can think of it as a wrapper around LND plus Bitcoin D. And then it allows UI layers to then communicate with those nodes. So you've got Bitcoin CLI, which is a command line utility for communicating with your Bitcoin node. Lightning LNCLI, same. And then you've got the Joule browser extension, and I'll be showing you that soon, and Zap desktop or mobile. And all of these can connect with the node launcher and use it as the Lightning node that drives these applications. So that's kind of what inspired me to create the node launcher. It's written in Python. It uses Qt as the UI layer because Qt or Qt, however you call it, is a very mature C++ framework, and they've created a thin wrapper in Python around it. And it's because it's so mature, it just works on Linux, Windows, and Mac OS. And it also is just a lot lighter than, if you use an Electron app like Slack or something, it uses a ridiculous amount of memory and it's just a big binary. This is much more reasonable. I think the binary is 30 megabytes, and the performance just feels like a native application. So if we go up here, we click on the, programmers call this the system tray menu area, and basically when you launch the node launcher, it'll just put this icon up here, and you can see the green dot on there. When you first launch it, the dot is red, and then it transitions to green. Green tells you that it's just ready to go. And so there's a number of different options. Once you open it, you can open the Bitcoin console, and this will allow you to do Bitcoin CLI type queries. So, for example, you could do get best block, and you'll see it auto fills it. So this is the best block hash. So that means that's the most recent block. So you have access to all of these different Bitcoin CLI commands that you can use to query your full node. So here you're really what I really like about the node launcher is that you're using Bitcoin how it's meant to be used, with your own fully verifying node, and that's just it's the best kind of scenario from a security and trustlessness perspective. Now there are improvements that need to be made from a privacy perspective, but that's kind of outside of the scope of this talk. But I think that you can still you can use this for doing things like getting a transaction. So if I do, let's see, I forget what it's like raw transaction, get raw transaction. Yeah. So here you can use this command to get like you would get information off of a block explorer, right? Put in the transaction ID, and instead of querying someone else's full node, you're querying your own. Anyway, so this is interesting. The Bitcoin node comes bundled with a wallet, but the node launcher disables the wallet so that you don't accidentally send coins to that wallet instead of sending it to the LND wallet, which is where you need to send it if you count on opening channels. So the wallet's disabled. Now, if you had been using the wallet beforehand, you can go into the settings. There's a settings here, and you can enable wallet. And then you restart the node launcher and it'll enable the Bitcoin wallet. But yeah, by default, it's off. In the settings, you can also change your Bitcoin data directory. That's kind of like that's the big one, because if you're not pruning, it'll take up like 250 gigabytes. But the node launcher automatically turns on pruning if you don't have enough space on your hard drive. So it'll take up 10 gigabytes if you just don't have much space. But just go delete some 4K movies that you downloaded and whatnot, and then you'll be able to use the node launcher and store all the blocks on your hard drive. So that's the settings. For LND, you can change your alias and your node color. Those are kind of cosmetic things. Anyway, you can see the Bitcoin output. So this is what the logs are saying. So like you'll see the most, like all of these almost are update tip. So that's a new block that came in that got mined, and it gives us some summary information about that block. So not super interesting, but it helps you debug issues. So if for whatever reason you start the node launcher and you're just it's not working, my first recommendation is to go see the Bitcoin output. If that seems fine, right? If it looks like the new blocks are coming in, then you can go see the LND output, and that's going to give you kind of what LND is up to. And you can scroll up here and kind of see different messages it's gotten. But we got a chat question here. Oh, hello, everyone. Okay. So then you can go, the LND console has other commands that you can do. So, for example, you can do like get info. And the nice thing too about the node launcher is that it formats the response, the JSON response, with a little bit of color and indentation to make it more visually clear. So this is kind of like the advanced way of using the node launcher. If you could just like enter commands in here and do, let's see, estimate fee. I know fees were high recently. Well, looks like I'm not using that command correctly. But anyway, the other commands you can use will allow you to use LND in like the most advanced manner, short of actually going into the gRPC API and programming things directly against that. So yeah, this just uses LNCLI and then adds the kind of boilerplate connection information so that it connects to the node launcher Lightning node. And then now the cool part here, these two buttons. So really what I would recommend doing is going to my Medium guide and reading through that and seeing how, like, it's simple. You just go to GitHub and you download the .exe or the .app. You open it up. It syncs. You don't need to touch it or anything. Once it's done syncing, then you can go on to the next step, which is setting up the Joule browser extension, which I have over here. So the Joule browser extension was not created by me. It was created by Will O'Brien, and I think it's probably the best way to interact with the Lightning Network at this point. So once you've got the green on the node launcher, then go to lightningjoule.com. You install this Chrome extension. You connect to your local node. You copy the URL. You paste it in. You do a little finicky stuff because LND creates its own like SSL certificate. So you have to kind of override your browser settings to make sure that Joule can connect to it. And then we've got a question here that came in. That's an excellent question. Any plans for a non-developer Linux package? Yes, absolutely. So I want to get it to where I can package it as like a .deb and be able to distribute it on Ubuntu or Debian, also as an RPM for like Fedora, Yum-based package managers. So then you can just do like apt-get install node launcher and have it install that way. And yeah, so that's definitely on the roadmap. Currently, you have to go and set it up as a developer, basically, and git clone the repository and then run python.run.py. If you are on Linux, I do already package an app and a .exe for Mac OS and Windows. So good question. So the connection, once you're connected, you show the macaroons. You drag and drop the macaroons into Joule. Hit continue, confirm, add a password, deposit money into your LND wallet, deposit on-chain coins. Once you've got that, then you can open a new channel. So the open new channel actually has an interesting feature here where you can show advanced fields, and you can set the fee yourself. So this is kind of for more advanced users, but really I think everyone should start to familiarize themselves with like what's going on with the mempool and the fee market for Bitcoin, because it's going to be around for a while. So get to learn how fees impact. I think the clearest way to communicate this is the website called Joho's Bitcoin mempool statistics. And basically, this graphs out what's going on with the backlog of transactions that are trying to get into blocks. And this is just a great way to learn about what's going on with the mempool and for you to kind of eyeball what your transaction fee should be. So, for example, like if it was April at the end of April 4th, and you're looking on this website and you're basically seeing the mempool crashing, that means that you can be pretty aggressive with the transaction fee, and you can be like, well, I'm just going to set it like 10 Satoshis per byte because I can clearly see where the trend is going. And that might be a better estimate than the automated fee estimator, because the automated fee estimator is like looking at, okay, well, fees were as high as, 80 bytes per or 80 Satoshis per byte very recently. So we're going to recommend that to be conservative. When it's like, well, if you looked at like kind of the velocity on this chart going down, we don't need to be so aggressive in setting the transaction fee. Anyway, so there's a lot of work to be done there. And I'd actually, you could hypothetically have like Joho's Bitcoin mempool statistics inside the node launcher, because then you could have the node launcher collecting this data and generating a graph. And that's on the roadmap. And that way you won't have to go to a third party and rely on their mempool. You can rely on your view of the mempool. Not that like I don't trust Joho, but it's always better to do things in a trustless manner in Bitcoin. Let's see, we've got okay. So that's that. And then the other cool thing in Joule, when you're opening a channel, open channel, you can actually say, don't announce channel to network, set it as private. So this is something that I think people are underestimating. Like if you're not a routing node, you should definitely not announce the channel to the network. And so, like, for example, on my laptop, I'm not running my routing node on my laptop. I'm just running a node for like my walking around money on the internet while I'm surfing. And so I don't need to be announcing my channels to the network. And the other thing too is that, like, when you announce your channel to the network, you're using up gossip resources. Basically, you're using up resources on other people's nodes for a channel that is just not going to be particularly useful to the network, because you're going on and offline as you open and close your laptop. So I definitely recommend using this checkbox if you are setting up the node launcher on your laptop or your desktop, and you don't expect it to be online 24/7. So you're going to be like putting it to sleep or shutting it down. So yeah, you open a channel here. You can enter the push amount. Be very careful about this. This means that you're sending sats to the person on the other end of the channel. So leave this at 0, or, you know, don't fill it in if you don't want to make a gift to the person on the channel. So so yeah, I'm spending a lot of time on Joule because really the node launcher is so simple. It's just it's exposing Bitcoin and LND and settings, and then in advanced you have ports that you could forward, and then ports that you probably should not forward because they're like to your LND wallet. And then you can show your Bitcoin configuration file, your LND configuration file, and this will just open it up in the Finder or in your file explorer, basically, and opens that desktop. And then some people had issues with their what's called like a TLS certificate, it's like an SSL certificate, and this allowed them to kind of tinker with that without getting the command line. But this, as the name implies, is for more advanced users. So yeah, let's continue. I want to show Joule when you are sending a payment. So let's go to y'alls.org, which is kind of like a better version of Reddit because it's incentivized with Satoshis. So here, continue, and then pay to continue reading, and it sends you an invoice, and then you hit confirm, and then this is the Joule extension is communicating with my Lightning node right now, which is being run by the node launcher. So we'll see if it confirms. It should. If I have a well-connected channel, let's see. Where's Will? Yeah, seriously, we should have had Will on. All right, it's spinning around a little bit, you know, as we can expect on this highly experimental network that we're building. Anyway, let's see. Are there any questions? Why it's pending? So really it's about the either it's trying to find a route, which I think that if that was the case, I mean, it should find a route pretty quickly because let's see, and not going through. Yeah. So payment attempt not completed before timeout of 1 minute. So let's try again. Let's just see, because it should work. I have plenty of inbound and outbound capacity connected to my routing node. And I hope my routing node is connected to y'all. So let's try it again. It might have been a fluke. What stack did you use to build the extension? So I didn't build it, but it's built with React, and it was built by Will O'Byrne. So follow him on Twitter. He's, let's see, at WBOBEIRNE. Yeah. So let's try this one. Continue reading, pay to and then we have the pop-up, hit confirm, and it's spinning its wheels. So that's not a good sign, right? And I don't know, maybe it's because, nope, it went through. Never mind. So all right, let's try another one, and let's see if now that things are warmed up, if that makes a difference. Confirm. Still kind of same speed, but it is working now, so that's good. Yeah, it's stretching before working out. So yeah, Yaws is great. The other thing too is that if you need inbound capacity because you want to be routing payments or receiving payments, you can go to lightningpowerusers.com. You enter your pub key. You can get your pub key in two ways. One way is in the LND console. If you do, let's see, get info. Let's see what it's up to by looking at the the output. Seems fine. Anyway, the other way to get your pub key is in Joule. You can copy this. I got there by clicking on kind of the what I imagine will be your profile picture on Joule. You click that, and then you copy that, and then that's your pub key. And it's not going to work for me because I already have channels open with Lightning Power Users. But this will allow you to essentially request that we open a channel to you, and that way you'll have capacity to receive payments. If you already have a channel open with Lightning Power Users, you can reciprocate for free for 3 days and just pay the transaction fee on that to open it. So yeah, that's the node launcher. What I would also, if you're a developer, I would encourage you to go to the GitHub, go to the node launcher, and there's a pull request I have open called Add UX Vision. And this is basically, if you go to the files, kind of describe like where I want the node launcher to go. So there's a few things I mentioned today, but one thing I want to add is that currently the node launcher does not use Tor, but I'd like for it to use Tor by default. That way you're not exposing your IP address to the public, and also you can connect more easily with a mobile wallet because that way you don't have to set up port forwarding. Yeah, so there's Tor. Then there's also Neutrino. So Neutrino also is kind of leads to some miscommunication because there was this whole scandal about Coinbase acquiring this company called Neutrino, which was evil. But there's actually a technology called Neutrino that has nothing to do with that whole scandal. And it's also called BIP157. That's kind of like the technical name for it. And basically the idea behind Neutrino is that people who are running a full node can provide summaries of blocks to you. And then if there's a transaction inside that block that interests you, you can request the full block. And that way you save on bandwidth and you don't have to run a fully validating node. So this is great for onboarding because that means that you can get on the Lightning Network in seconds. It's not so great from a decentralization perspective because you're relying on other people's full nodes. But in any case, what the node launcher will do so currently this is on testnet and people are kind of seeing if it works well and whatnot. But we expect it to be on mainnet probably this year. And what the node launcher will do is that it'll start LND. It'll start your Lightning node using Neutrino, BIP157 Light client, and it will also start Bitcoin and doing what's called an IBD, which is the initial block download. So that's where it starts with the first block, the origin block, and then it works through each block. Now there's like over 500,000 blocks. In total, it'll take like on the fastest setup, the fastest IBD I've seen was 2 hours. And this guy had a beast of a machine, and he had very good internet, or he was doing it, from a local peer. But generally, like, if you have fiber and you have a fairly modern computer, it'll take like 6 hours. That's how long it takes for me. If you have a slow internet connection, it could take like 2 weeks or a month, or just it may never finish because your node your internet connection is not fast enough for your node to even catch up to the tip. But generally speaking, like if you have DSL or cable internet, like it'll take you anywhere from a day to a couple of weeks. Now so fast sync. I like fast sync. It's very helpful for people, but I think that BIP 157 is just so close to being ready that it'll obviate the question, because BIP 157 is faster than fast sync, and also I don't think that the trust properties are like that different. Now, I understand that fast sync has worked very well for BTC Pay Server, and I'm a fan. But it would just be more engineering work for the node launcher than I think it would be worth, especially because like right now, it is annoying that people have to do IBD. But also the target audience for the node launcher is people who are like enthusiasts and are excited about getting on Lightning. And so it hasn't been a huge impediment. Now, one of the problems is that it'll cause... I do hope that someone submits a pull request and adds fast sync. I'd be happy to merge that. So having to wait for IBD does cause some people to go and use a custodial wallet instead. And that's why I think it's really important to have a way of rapidly getting LND up to speed while the Bitcoin node is syncing in the background. And then the node launcher will turn off BIP 157 and then use Bitcoin D as the backend. That way, you're really getting the best of both worlds, because then you're using the light client for as little time as needed while your full node gets set up, and then once you're on your full node, you're using Bitcoin how it should be used in a trustless manner. So that I'm very excited about. We'll probably see that later this year. Something else that I really want to do is have the node launcher translated into all major languages and eventually all languages, because I think that it really is going to be useful for people everywhere in the world. And then creating like YouTube videos that summarize everything I just said into 20 seconds of, download this, open this, and then you're running and you're using Lightning, and then it'll have like notifications. Currently, it has 2 notifications: one when the node launcher starts, and then one when it is ready to go. I want to add several other notifications. So, for example, like if you don't have any funds in your LND wallet, it'll prompt you to deposit Satoshis, and it'll show a QR code for an on-chain address and all that. And then once you've sent funds, then I want it to send a notification if you don't have any channels, like, hey, you should open a channel, and it'll guide you through that and help get you set up on Joule. So the other thing I want to cut out with Joule is having to like enter the macaroons and all of that stuff. So I think that we'll be able to do that as Joule will add like a kind of the ability to communicate with the node launcher. So the node launcher will expose like a little REST API that Joule will query to get kind of the macaroons information. And I'm hoping that LND's TLS certificate situation will get worked out so that they use a way of generating those certificates so that you don't have to manually, in Chrome or whatever browser you're using, set it to trust that certificate. That way, you'll be able to rapidly onboard yourself in like one click, and I'm very excited about that. So enough rambling for me. If you have any further questions, you can definitely reach out to me on Twitter. I'm at Pierre_Rochard, or you can go on to GitHub and file an issue. But really, the place to start is on Medium. If you just Google easiest Lightning guide, it'll probably come up first. And that way you can join all the fun.
Cool. So if you guys have other questions for Pierre, please drop them in the chat box below, or use the Q&A function in Zoom, and I can keep track of them that way. But I did have one question for you. Do you think you can kind of further explain some of the, I guess, backlash people have against Neutrino, the light client for the Lightning Network?
Yeah, so I think that there's concern about that technology being abused. And so basically, if we got into a situation where you uh, the desktop application for using Lightning uses Neutrino or uses a light client, and your mobile uses a light client, and you're just not running a full node at all, then that means that there's vulnerabilities to that. And so, we saw in 2017 the issue with the miners kind of like trying to quote unquote hijack Bitcoin. And I don't want to get into the politics of all of that, but the bottom line is that if without you running a full node, you have to rely on someone else's full node, and you have to rely on the consensus rules that they are implementing and the information that they're feeding you. So the bottom line is that the most trust minimized manner of using Bitcoin is with the full node. So I understand people's concerns about Bitcoin 57, but I also think that if we use it strategically as a stopgap while your full node is syncing, then that means that we can, at the margin, get fewer people using custodial wallets and more people using Bitcoin in a non-custodial, trust minimized manner.
On the other hand, though, so right now we don't have Neutrino, we don't have light clients readily available. And some of the wallets that I've been seeing actually are custodial, right? And
Yeah.
so I kind of feel like between two evils, I would rather have something that's more of a light client than having a custodial Lightning Network wallet.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that then the next bridge is how do we engineer it so that you're not only using light client, so that you do eventually sync a full node and fall back on that. So that's challenging on mobile because of the bandwidth and processing power needed to run a full node on mobile. And there's like AB Core that works on Android, but I think that's like maybe a little unrealistic. But I actually think that the better solution than just running Neutrino or Bitcoin 57 on mobile is to connect to your node at home. So if we make it easy for your mobile to connect to your node at home, that way when you're out and about, you're phoning home rather than. And the reason I think that's better is because that way you can have the same set of channels on your phone as you have on your laptop, as you have on your routing node, or on your Nautilus or your Raspberry Blitz or your Casa, etc. So that you're sharing those channels in those different contexts and not having to open channels and lock up capital for every single device that you use with the Lightning network. So we'll see how things evolve there. I'm so focused on the laptop and desktop situation that I don't actually pay attention to mobile at all. I've never used a mobile Lightning wallet. I just want to lock down the experience on desktop and laptop. And once I'm very confident about it, like working flawlessly, then I want to start exploring mobile.
Yeah, that makes sense. So another question that someone had from the audience is there a way to verify the downloads for the executables currently?
So unfortunately, no, for the node launcher. Now, the node launcher goes and downloads the official binaries for LND and for Bitcoin D from the Bitcoin Core website. So if you want, you can go verify those binaries for sure, because that's where the node launcher gets them. The node launcher, I haven't set up an Apple account or a Microsoft account or like GPG keys yet. I will do that. If you're concerned about it, you can definitely pretty easily clone the repository and run Python, run .py, and that's even better than a signed binary is just running it from source.
Yeah. And back to that topic about trying to run a full node from your mobile wallet. So the idea, I think, is like to download the whole blockchain history and then prune it. But that can be 200 gigabytes of data that a mobile phone has to go through. And if it's not connected to the internet, I just don't know how practical that would be.
Yeah, you'd have to be on Wi-Fi. But this is actually this kind of problem isn't just the BIP157 neutrino also takes up bandwidth. Like it's not like it takes up zero bandwidth.
Right.
A lot less than a full node for sure, especially because you don't have to do like initial block download. But in any case, like I still, from a bandwidth perspective, there's even less bandwidth usage from just having it query your Lightning node at home, especially if you're like trying to run a routing node, because like routing and like keeping track of the public channel graph also takes up a lot of resources. So I think that it actually ultimately just will make more sense for people to, and I have a soft spot for this vision, like maybe I'm biased, but I like this idea of people just running a server at home that's on 24/7.
Wow.
Because then we can like introduce them to this idea of like hosting your own things, whether it's your Lightning wallet or your own website or whatever else it is that you're hosting on your own. Or like there's a decentralized Twitter called Mastodon as well. So
Right.
like federated type services. Yeah. Oh yeah. And if you want to contact me for consulting about how to do social media and how to get a big following on Twitter, feel free to reach out, and I provide hourly consulting. But basically, my advice just boils down to get addicted to Twitter and don't stop tweeting, and then you'll build a big following. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. So kind of along the lines that you were talking about hosting your own server and stuff. So from your perspective, what does an ideal Bitcoin user look like? Like what best practices is he implementing?
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So ultimately, like you have to start with how you're buying your Bitcoin. And there's a lot of controversy about like what the best way to buy your Bitcoin is.
Mhm.
Because if you're trying to optimize for privacy, then you're going to make a different decision than if you're trying to like optimize for like cost, for example, or for convenience. So different people are going to have like different ways of prioritizing those things. Like people, I think that it's widely seen that the ideal Bitcoiner is the one who optimizes for privacy over convenience or cost. I don't like that's maybe that's true, maybe that's not. I don't really have a view on that. Personally, like I don't optimize for privacy, and if the government wants to like come kneecap me, they can get all of the information from the exchanges about where I bought my Bitcoin.
Oh no.
But for privacy, like at the end of the day, the ideal is you stumble on someone in public, you know, and they're selling Bitcoin, and you have cash, and you like hand it to them, and no one knows about it. Now, less privacy than that would be like local Bitcoins, where like local Bitcoins knows about the transaction, and maybe they don't do KYC AML, but maybe they will have to, and maybe they're starting to do that now. Or you can use a decentralized exchange like BISC, where you do have to reveal your identity to the person that is, you know, you're giving your money, your USD to. So ultimately, like even that's not perfectly anonymous. Now maybe you can find someone who'll like drop, or you'll drop a paper bag full of cash in a park, and then they'll come get it like secret agents style. But there's just no perfect solution there. I think some are better than others, different trade-offs. So there's that, and then you would ideally receive your Bitcoin and verify the transaction ID on your full node that you're running at home, and you would receive it in like a secure manner. So one way, there's the Glacier protocol that people talk about as like the coldest way of securing your coins. I think that might be overkill for a lot of people. That's like a lot of work. There's hardware wallets that they've gotten criticism for having some vulnerabilities, but practically speaking, like the vulnerabilities that they have, have been identified are not like crazy things where like I'm worried about it. So I think that for most people, a hardware wallet is actually a pretty good set of trade-offs. The problem with hardware wallets, especially Ledger, so I'd recommend Trezor over Ledger for two reasons. I found the UX to just be better for Trezor. And then Ledger requires you to get the BTC app from the Ledger store. And so that means that you're required to like tie your IP address essentially with your Ledger device, which is just not good for privacy. So Trezor, and then don't use your Trezor with the Trezor web app because then you violate your privacy because you're giving them all your information. Use your Trezor with Electrum personal server, which like is a whole big thing to set up. But really, the cool thing is that the next version of Bitcoin Core will have built-in hardware support. So with the node launcher, I anticipate being able to connect your Trezor to the node launcher, and then because you're only querying your local Bitcoin node, you're not violating your privacy at all, and you can be using your Trezor to receive these Bitcoins that you're getting from. And let me back up. I was talking about exchanges and whatnot. The best way to get Bitcoin is to set up BTC Pay Server and to receive Bitcoin.
There you go.
Exchange for goods and services. Because that way you have excellent privacy, and you could potentially be in a situation where you don't have any private information leaking to the other person, because maybe you're providing like digital artwork where you just like send it to them and you can be fully pseudonymous, and they send you the Bitcoin and you tumble it through your Wasabi wallet, and then you have it go to your Trezor that you're using with Bitcoin Core, etc. So
yeah, for like hardware wallets, I feel like it gives me digital security. All the vulnerabilities that I've seen have to do with like coming into physical contact, right? And so
yeah, correct. So like the evil maid attacks, like definitely think about physical security too for OPSEC. Use Tor, learn about Tor and use it. That's really where you can you can be more private that way. But all these things, like I think that they're currently getting easier and easier to do, and I think that trend will continue. And so, like, if you're already running a home server, like maybe we can make it really easy to run BTC Pay Server at home, so you don't have to use like a VPS provider like Azure. Anyway, yeah, I'm rambling. So then move some small percentage of your Bitcoin to your Lightning LND wallet and start opening channels, and then you can be on the Lightning network in a very private manner. So yeah, all this is to say is that you could hypothetically like use Bitcoin in a 100% private manner. If you're using Tor with BTC Pay Server and you're selling digital services, and you're fully pseudonymous, and you don't go dox yourself on Twitter like an idiot.
Yeah, so you heard it here, folks. First, folks, it's the ideal Bitcoin user is someone who's very focused about privacy. They earn their Bitcoin, they run their own full node, and they send some of it into a Lightning Network channel. Very cool, very cool.
Hold their own keys. Yep.
And they hold their own keys, absolutely. Well, Pierre, thank you so much for your time. And where can people get in contact with you if they have any follow-up questions to the node launcher?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm always on Twitter, so my DMs are open, and you can just DM me at Pierre_Rochard. You can email me, pierre@rochard.org, or you can find me on GitHub and just file an issue on the node launcher. But go to the Medium post. I spam it all the time on Twitter, but if you can't find it, just Google Pierre Rochard, Pierre Lightning, probably will bring it up. And yeah, go subscribe to the Noted Bitcoin podcast. That's NODED. I co-host it with Michael Goldstein, and there we just talk about all things Bitcoin, both among ourselves, and we'll have guests in occasionally. And go to the there's a few conferences I'll be going to this year. Bitcoin 2019, that's in San Francisco in June. I'll be at Consensus in New York in May. So that's next month. And I'll be at Baltic Honey Badger, which I think is in like September. And I'll be at Bit Block Boom in Dallas in in August. And I'm very excited about Big Block Boom because that coincides with the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute annual steak dinner, which is being organized by our carnivore friend, Michael Goldstein. And last year we had 82 people come from all over the world to talk Bitcoin. This year we'll probably have even more. And it's just a lot of fun. It's all the best Bitcoiners.
Yeah, it's the season for conferences, I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah, now it's year round. Like there was just Understanding Bitcoin in Malta. There's got to be a conference every month now, which is great because it's a great way to meet people in person and to learn a lot from each other.
Aren't you in the Bitcoin bus going up to San Francisco or something like that?
Yeah, correct. So for the Bitcoin Magazine conference in San Francisco, I'm flying into LA and riding on a bus with a bunch of crypto people for 8 hours there and back. So that will either be the most fun I've ever had, or I'll have to take a break from Bitcoin for a little while after that and kind of maybe check myself into Bitcoin rehab.
Dude, good luck to you on that bus. If you need someone to give you a ride from the airport or something, let me know. I'm based in LA.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone. The next speaker that we have up is Max Hillebrand, and he'll be talking about the economics of Lightning. Hopefully, I'll see you guys there. Tickets are still selling all the way up to his session. So I'll see you guys. Bye.